Welcome back to another strange art episode, and today we're going to look over, not Godzilla this time, but another famous monster, King Kong. Now, I didn't think there would be much I can go off for Kong alone, but as it turns out, there is quite a bit of weird art out there for the Eighth Wonder himself. So, with that said, let's dive in. Please consider both liking and subscribing, it really helps. Of course, where else to start than the original film? Now, this first movie had a ton of stylized art for it at the time, and really none of it's that bad. Now, of course, art is subjective, so you might think otherwise. If anything, they normally get actress Fay Wray's appearance wrong on most of them. Despite that, I personally think a lot of them are alright, though there are their fair share of oddball ones out there, like the Italian posters here. This one has Kong with these weirdly elongated arms. I mean, they might be okay, but in combination with those blood red eyes, really gives me a disturbing vibe with this one. Another Italian one has the iconic moment where Kong's on top of the Empire State Building being fired at by the planes. What's odd about this one isn't much of Kong himself. I mean, he does look a little off here, but my attention is going right to how big the woman Anne is here. I mean, if she stood upright here, she'd be roughly a quarter off Kong's height. Also, she is definitely not this exposed in the movie. There is another Italian one where it looks like Kong is pretending to be Dracula here. At least that's what I get out of it. The French poster has him crushing a car in the palm of his hand, which doesn't happen in the film. He isn't even that big enough where he can actually do that with a single hand. Also, his face here just looks off. It kind of looks like it's stretching itself to the left. A second French poster here shows a literal giant gorilla just laying on top of the Empire State Building. Yes, I know Kong is just that, a giant gorilla, but this, at least to me, doesn't look like Kong. This next one I honestly thought was a Poland poster at first, but as it turns out, it's another French one. Anyway, this particular piece makes Kong look gigantic. I mean, he's towering over New York City of all places. Hell, given Anne's size here, she could probably dwarf over the buildings herself. Also, Kong's expression here makes him look like he's either tired or just looks like an idiot.
Duh, I have girl, what do now?
Up next is a 1968 re-release American poster, and I think the image speaks for itself. With Kong really needing to cut back down on whatever he's eating and swing some vines a little more. The Argentina re-release poster is also not such a sight to behold. The artist who did this clearly used a production photo as reference, or copy is what I should say. And the final outcome is just a huge mess, with the lighting all over the place on Kong, not really giving me any sense of depth, and really not a good looking Kong. The Danish poster here is simple and doesn't look bad. I do like how the color contrast is set up here, with Anne in a red dress helping her stick out from the blue poles here, and making Kong all blue to set him apart from the all red background. Another Danish poster here is a redrawn American poster, with this one making Kong look like a comic book supervillain. You know, the type of ones who usually have a big brain? The Belgian one also has the same recreated art piece, but it's not as bad as the last one. A second Belgian poster takes another production image and recreates it to this chocolatey swirled Kong with very defined nipples. Let's step right into the sequel now with Son of Kong. This movie doesn't have nearly as many posters as its predecessor, but two do stand out as weird. This American one here looks as though Kong Jr. put on lipstick, or he just has a very bloody smile. I really don't have any idea why they made him look like this, especially when on the other posters he looks fine. The other strange one I have is the Dutch poster, where the little ape definitely does not resemble his film counterpart in any such way. Also, the way he's positioned here, he kinda reminds me of the Rock'em Sock'em robots. What, you don't see it?
When you press this plunger, he throws a right uppercut. Press the other plunger and there's a left jab.
I already went through most of the King Kong vs. Godzilla art in my more strange Godzilla art video, so check that out if you want to see those. One I didn't cover though was this little gem here. It's technically not a poster, but an American trade ad. The art is a recreated piece from a previous poster, which now shows Godzilla's tail, which is unnecessarily long and probably outgrows even Shin Godzilla's tail. But the big problem here is Kong himself, which he is now depicted here as a full-blown Sasquatch. King Kong Escapes has probably the weirdest art pieces of all the Kong movies, starting with the international poster, which prominently features Mechanic Kong on the front, while Kong himself is this little smudge on the corner here, interpreting the escape title as if he broke out of prison or something. The German one here also uses the image, only replacing Prison Kong with just Kong about to chuck a rock. Also, if you're wondering, this version of the movie was hilariously called King Kong, Frankenstein's Son. Another German one features a recreated image from a Japanese poster with a giant Mechanicon looming over the characters. Honestly, the art here is really nice. The colors look vibrantly appealing, and the details look really good. The only thing that ruins it, besides the Frankenstein title, is that this lady here definitely does not look like Linda Miller. The Italian poster here has an oversized Kong standing on top of what looks like New York City, holding a woman who again, obviously isn't Linda Miller. The movie in Italy was also called King Kong, the Giant of the Forest. Wouldn't it be nice if the artist actually put him in a forest instead of a city then? In Argentina, the movie was called King Kong, the Eighth Wonder of the World. You might think with that title and the image I'm showing here that this is an actual poster for the original 1933 film, but no, this is still a King Kong Escapes poster, just with recycled art from the original movie. A second poster from Argentina has a better representation of the film with just a flat shot of Kong and Gorosaurus. At least the kaiju look like what they should in the picture. The Spanish poster just looks wrong on so many levels. To begin with, it looks like we're in New York City again. Either these artists don't even bother watching the film, or they're just not paying attention. The movie does not take place in New York, nor even America for that matter. Second, Mechanicon is ginormous here, especially if he's able to tower the Empire State Building like this. Third, what's going on here? I get what scene this is supposed to be representing from the film, but why is it in this context, when Mechanicon just staring at it in New York City? Why are the helicopters giant? Who are these guys, and what do they believe a gun is going to do in this situation? To top it off, the title of the movie was called Reborns and Now, King Kong Escapes. If I'm to be fair though, the art is at least pretty decent. The French poster for Escapes has another oversized Kong punching a chopper out of the sky while holding a giant woman in his hand. I mean, compare this lady to the tiny windows of the skyscraper. A second French poster here has another gigantic Kong waving at you while crowds of people flee from a burning city. His empty hand here looks like the artist forgot to draw a girl in his palm. Kinda feels a little odd being left empty here. The Belgian one here has Kong again looking very gigantic, very Sasquatchy, and very thin. At least that's what I get out of it. I don't know, I don't like this one. The final King Kong Escapes poster here is the Poland one. My newfound love for these Poland posters got me excited when one finally came into play here. I like how kinda ominous the art feels here, with Kong silhouetted with these eerie orange eyes staring at you while he flexes. I'm somewhat lost on what the purple's supposed to be here. It might be some form of highlighting, I guess. If that's the case, it's just kinda randomly placed here. The 1976 King Kong didn't have much in the way of posters. It seems a lot of the countries just use the casual posters commonly associated with the film. There are some odd ones that I did come across though, like the Czech poster here, where on first glance you might think Kong just gave you a thumbs up until you look closely and realize he's just holding in. There's also these incredibly detailed looking posters which aren't bad by any means, though Kong's face on them does look a little off. I don't know, maybe it's just me. The sequel King Kong Lives had a few Japanese posters which look, I want to say pretty good, though they can be an acquired taste depending on how you look at them. This one here to me looks like a deranged Donkey Kong. I do gotta admit though, these are at least better than the French poster, which is just a shot of Kong's head. The Spanish poster is a redrawn and maybe even re-edited American one, only instead now placing Kong in a different background and adds his kid dry humping his leg here. Look at that face, he knows he's doing it. The 2005 Kong didn't have much to offer in terms of posters, especially when it came out in an era where poster art just wasn't anything to write home about. If I could say anything about these, is that all the posters associated with this film just look kinda bland with no sense of adventure or thrills, and simply look like screen captures with the logo plastered on them. Kong Skull Island had a lot of really nice posters, with some of course better than others, and Godzilla vs. Kong is about the same in terms of quality. If I had to pick a bad one for both of them, I'd say this one from Skull Island because it just looks goofy, and this one for GVK only because it looks empty and boring when compared to the rest. And that'll about do it for this video. Were there any posters here you liked, loved, or absolutely hated? If so, tell me why in the comments below. Anyways, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching to the end here, and until next time, take care.